In 1986, Australia's most patriotic car company was on the brink of disaster. Holden, the brand that built the Australian dream, had a massive problem. The government had just introduced strict new unleaded fuel laws, and Holden's aging inline-six engines simply could not meet the regulations. They had no money to develop a new engine, and their flagship car, the Commodore, was weeks away from production without a heartbeat. So, in a desperate move to save the company, Holden executives did the unthinkable. They quietly flew to Japan, walked into the headquarters of their fiercest rival, and bought an engine. When the Australian public found out that the new Holden VL Commodore was powered by a Nissan engine, the backlash was brutal. The press called it a betrayal. Loyal fans were furious. How could the great Australian car be powered by the same engine found in a Nissan Skyline? But then, something unexpected happened. That engine, the Nissan RB30, turned out to be a masterpiece. It was smoother, stronger, and more reliable than anything Holden had ever built. And when they bolted a turbocharger to it, it created a monster that would terrorize Australian streets for the next 40 years. This is the story of the Holden 5L Commodore RB30, the engine that Australia hated, the engine that saved Holden, and the engine that accidentally birthed a 1,000-horsepower tuning legacy. A ticking clock haunted every hallway at Holden headquarters. The government's new rules, Australian Design Rule 37, landed like a hammer. From January 1st, 1986, every new car had to run clean on unleaded, low-octane petrol. The old Black 6 and the proud 5-litre V8, legends in their own right, were suddenly relics. Engineering memos piled up on the boardroom table. One memo, dated May 12, 1985, spelled out the crisis in plain terms. The current 3.3-litre six-cylinder cannot be certified for unleaded fuel without extensive redesign. Time and cost constraints force us to consider an external source for a compliant six-cylinder. No amount of wishful thinking could change the numbers. Unleaded petrol was only 91 to 93 RON, down from the 97-octane super the black motor needed. Running the old engines on this new brew meant knocking, worn-out valves, and a guaranteed fail on emissions. The board's cost-benefit study estimated over $1,000 per engine just to retrofit hardened valve seats and catalytic converters. Delays would push the VL launch out by months, maybe kill it entirely. There wasn't enough money in the bank for a clean sheet redesign. Every engineer knew it. The Commodore's heart had stopped beating, and the deadline wasn't moving. Inside the executive suite, the pressure was suffocating. If they missed the legal cutoff, Holden would lose not just market share, but its entire claim to the Australian family car. That's when the unthinkable became the only option. Subscribe for more untold stories from the edge of automotive history. The solution came together in boardrooms and back channels, not the factory floor. Holden's procurement team picked up the phone and dialed Nissan Australia, then Tokyo. The ask was simple but desperate. Thousands of RB30 engines, fast, quiet, compliant, and ready to run on 91-octane unleaded. Purchase order H85023 landed on a Nissan fax machine in March 1985, specifying a shipment of RB30E inline-sixes with electronic fuel injection and a 3.0-litre displacement. The engines would arrive in 2 waves, each tracked on shipping manifest Y85109 as they crossed the Pacific and cleared customs at Port Melbourne. Negotiations weren't just about price or volume. Holden's legal team pressed for an exclusivity clause, locking down the RB30E turbo configuration for themselves. The contract barred Nissan from selling turbocharged RB30s to any other Australian manufacturer, giving Holden a secret weapon in the horsepower wars. The RB30E's spec sheet ticked every regulatory box: single overhead cam, aluminum head, hardened valve seats, and a compression ratio matched to unleaded fuel. The turbo version, the RB30ET, added a Mitsubishi TD04 turbo, oil-cooled intercooler, and a beefed-up fuel system. By September 1985, RB30 engines were stacked on pallets in a Melbourne warehouse, each stamped with its serial number and ready for the VL assembly line. The deal was done, but secrecy was absolute. No press releases, no leaks. Only a handful of executives and engineers knew the real story. Holden's Flagship was about to run with a Japanese heart. Subscribe for more untold stories from the edge of automotive history. February 1986. The covers come off the new VL Commodore, and a ripple of disbelief runs through the motoring press. Headlines in the Sydney Morning Herald scream, "Holden's Japanese heart. Car lovers furious." The Melbourne Age calls it a national shame. Letters flood the editors' desks. One letter in the advertiser spat, "I bought a Holden because it was an Australian icon. Now it contains a foreign engine, and it feels like a betrayal." The phones at Holden's customer relations desk ring off the hook. In just 2 months, over 300 complaints pile up, most boiling down to one question: how could Australia's most patriotic car maker sell out to Japan? At the dealerships, old-timers glare at the PowerTech 6 EFI badge and mutter that it's a fig leaf for a Nissan block. The launch brochure, thick with talk of electronic fuel injection and Australian engineering, never breathes a word about where the new heart actually comes from. That's not an accident. A marketing directive from January spells it out: no mention of Nissan in press releases or dealer literature. It's PowerTech, full stop. Nissan, for their part, can't resist twisting the knife. By June, their own ad runs in Motor Magazine. If you like the engine in the Commodore, why not buy the car it was designed for? The message is clear. This so-called Aussie legend now owes its life to a Japanese transplant. The old rivalry has never felt sharper, and for the first time in decades, Holden's national identity seems up for grabs. Subscribe for more untold stories from the edge of automotive history. Numbers cut through the noise like a cold wind. On paper, the RB30 looked like a gamble, an import, a compromise, a badge-engineered Band-Aid. But when the first VLs hit the test track, the story changed overnight. Factory sheets listed the RB30E at 114 kilowatts, already a leap over the old Black 6. Reviewers from Wheels & Motor clocked the naturally aspirated VL at 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just over 8 seconds. Quicker than the outgoing model, smoother across the rev range, and with none of the knock or rattle that haunted the old engines on unleaded. Then came the turbo. The RB30ET, exclusive to Holden thanks to that secret contract clause, hit 150 kilowatts and 296 newton meters of torque. Motor Magazine's stopwatch read 7.6 seconds to 100 kilometers per hour, with a top speed of 220 kilometers per hour. Suddenly, the so-called sellout was outrunning Ford's V8 Falcons and embarrassing European imports twice the price. Road testers called it the best handling, quickest Commodore ever. Letters to the editor started to shift. The numbers did not care about old loyalties. They just proved the new heart was beating stronger than ever. In the end, it was not a badge or a birthplace that mattered. It was raw, undeniable performance. Is the VL Turbo the greatest Commodore ever built, or does the old Holden V8 still rule the legend? Subscribe for more untold stories from the edge of automotive history. Rumours swirl wherever fast cars and blue lights cross paths. For decades, the story went that New South Wales Police snapped up VL turbos for their highway patrol fleet, turning the so-called sellout into a pursuit legend. But when archive researchers combed through the New South Wales Police Gazette and departmental fleet records from 1986 to 1992, the official trail ran cold. No procurement notice, no fleet order, not a single VL turbo listed in the standard pursuit inventory. The myth, however, refuses to die. Enthusiasts point to rare photos and anecdotal sightings, but inside the archives, the paperwork is not there. The real legacy of the VL Turbo would be written not in police ledgers, but in the hands of a new generation of street tuners, Subscribe for more untold stories from the edge of automotive history. The real redemption of the RB30 didn't happen in the showroom. It happened in backyard sheds and drag strip pits years after the VL left the factory. Tuners cracked open the cast iron RB30 block and realized it was built to take punishment. The block could handle boost levels that would grenade most rivals, and the bolt pattern meant you could swap on a twin cam head from a Skyline GTR. That unlocked a floodgate. Suddenly, the same engine once mocked as an outsider was putting down 1,000 horsepower on private dynos. Street Machine magazine ran features on VL turbos running 7-second quarter miles, all with that same Australian delivered block at the heart. Builders like Matt Sims and Bullet Race Engineering started posting dyno logs showing RB30 hybrids pushing past 4-figure numbers without splitting the block. The irony was impossible to ignore. The engine that once symbolised defeat for Holden became the backbone of Australia's fastest street machines and a cult hero in the drag scene. Subscribe for more untold stories from the edge of automotive history. Irony runs on high octane. The engine that nearly got Holden exiled turned the VL Turbo into a quarter-mile slayer that made 150 kilowatts, and into a cult legend for 40 years. In the end, survival rewrites loyalty. Is the VL Turbo the true king, or does the V8 still rule? Subscribe for more legends.